Hey everyone, welcome to Digital Marketing Talks, a place for you to learn and grow your business. My name is Rana. I'm a founder of Digital Marketing Talks and Green Marketing Zone. I'm so pumped today that you're here. Make sure to stick around so you don't miss any tips and tricks to build and grow your business. Let's start with the topic for today. We are actually going to explain how somebody can create content or get the content ideas for their social media. Today I am joined with a special guest, Melanie Diesel. She's a director of content at Foundation Marketing. She's a founder of Story Fuel, an international keynote speaker, author, award-winning branded content creator, and a lifelong storyteller. She's on a mission to share the power of compelling and credible content with others. So let's welcome her to the show. Hey Melanie, how are you doing?
Hi there. Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and how do you manage a lot of things?
Yeah, well, that was a lovely intro. You covered most of it, but yeah, I'm a former journalist. I was trained as a journalist, and I have found that the things I learned there are really applicable in the worlds of business and marketing and sales even. So, I've been sort of on a mission to share all those learnings, all those things that we're taught as journalists and creators. I'm really passionate about sharing all of that in as many ways as I can with business owners, marketers, entrepreneurs, because I just feel like, the more tools we have in our tool belt, the better off we'll be, the better the chance that we can create success for our business.
So you're an author of a really good book. It's a best-selling book. So tell us a little bit about a story behind the book as well.
Yeah, so the Content Fuel Framework, How to Generate Unlimited Story Ideas, was a work of love. So basically, I had been doing a lot of workshops and working with clients, and I was teaching, how to come up with story ideas very quickly. But it was tough for me because I couldn't reach many people. I was really lucky that I could go into a business and speak to their employees, but it was tough to share it with as many people as I knew needed it. And I also knew that, not everyone who could benefit from it would be in a position to hire me for a workshop or to bring me into their events. So a book seemed to me like the best way to get that information out as widely as I could and hopefully make it accessible for a lot of people. So yeah, it was really sort of me taking all of my idea generating knowledge out of my head and trying to put it into a book. And I wrote the book while I was pregnant with my daughter, actually. So that made for a very good deadline. I definitely had to get it done.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it was a great experience to be able to put something like that out. I've been a journalist and a writer my whole life, but I'd never created something, quite that big. So it was definitely a creative challenge.
So when somebody is creating a content, be it a business owner or just a creator, it is very hard because it takes a lot of time and planning, and then you have to do a lot of research about the topic that you're going to create content about. So, and that's the reason most businesses and most people who are creating content, they are unable to find those type of ideas. And so where do you think the potential problem is coming with the content most businesses are creating? Or when do you have that aha moment of, okay, this is the problem that most businesses are dealing with, or this is something that the businesses need to fix so they can create better content?
Yeah, so I think there's like kind of two challenges that come up, and they're very closely related. So one that happens all the time is we feel a tremendous amount of pressure to create tons and tons of content for all these different places. As a business owner, you love what it is that you do. You probably didn't get into business because you like maybe taking photos for Instagram or videos for YouTube. That's kind of outside your core passion area. And so it can be really overwhelming to feel like suddenly I've got to be running, 5, 10 different social channels and have a blog and have an email. Like that kind of overwhelm can almost make it so we don't do anything at all. So I think that's like one of the core problems that we often feel. We feel like intimidated or nervous about it. And then the close cousin to that is that, we don't think that we have any stories to tell, or that what we do isn't interesting. So that's sort of like an excuse we can give ourselves, like, oh, no one cares what I do. No one wants to hear about me. No one wants to know the behind the scenes for us or anything like that. And it kind of allows us to be taken in by that overwhelm, and that it gives us like more evidence that we just shouldn't do anything because we can't do it all. So I think the biggest change is more of a mindset change of realizing that everyone has stories that are worth telling. This is just a fact that we must accept. But also that we are all capable of telling stories, and that, in many cases, when we look at, the templates and the formats and the platforms that we're being asked to use, we're sort of forcing ourselves into environments where we don't do our best work. Sort of like, evaluating a bird on how well it swims instead of flies, right? So the key is to figure out your superpower. What is the way that you like to tell stories? That might be verbally out loud. It might be writing. It might be being on video. It might be designing through images. Find the way that you most like to communicate your stories, and then create content that feeds into that. So just a tactical example, I am a writer. My instinct is always to write. So if I were trying to create a YouTube video every day or a live stream like this, that's outside my expertise. So no wonder I would feel exhausted and frustrated and like I can't do this if I were trying something totally outside, that I haven't trained myself to do yet. So sometimes a good way to get started is find that way that you're most comfortable and start there, because the better it is, if I start writing regularly, it builds my confidence, it builds my amount of content, and I can hopefully learn some other ways to tell stories down the line.
Exactly. That's so true. Like if you are not made up to do something specific and you're trying to do that, it's going to be harder, and eventually you're going to give up. So
yeah,
and that's what happens with most businesses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of value in stretching our comfort zone and trying new things and teaching ourselves new skills. Absolutely. We should definitely all continue to learn throughout life. But there is something to be said for getting that early momentum going really well by starting early, starting with the one that you're most comfortable in, and you kind of like, just like muscles, you get those muscles stronger and stronger until you're able to try something new.
So my phone is going on and on. So when someone is trying to market their business, content is the most important thing. And telling a compelling story is the thing that can make or break for your business. But then there is a lot of noise as well. When you go on any social media channel, you see tons of stuff coming on, and yet sometimes you pay attention, and sometimes if you're not looking for something, it's just gonna go and you're not gonna even see it. There is no attention to it, right? So how can a business create content that is customer centric, or some kind of a strategy that can really bring the attention of their customers? Because definitely I really want to create some content on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, but I want to make sure that my audience is actually engaging with it, right? And that's the most important thing. And sometimes, like, even when I talk to some businesses, they're telling me that they create content every day, but nobody's engaging with it, and they're so frustrated. They don't want to do it anymore, and they're like, nobody even disliking it. Forget about liking it. So how can they create a customer centric content strategy?
I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that there is a lot of noise, right? There is so much noise. Our customers, our prospects, they have so many choices about what it is that they could be doing. So we're not just competing, with other articles or other videos. We're competing with their email inbox and, text messages coming in, and the allure of TikTok and scrolling on TikTok for an hour. There's a lot of other things on their devices that draw away attention. So rather than trying to create more content that we're going to try to get in front of them more times, our efforts are often better spent creating better content and really focusing on their needs, like you said. So figuring out what are their challenges, what are the questions that they need answered, what are some of the things that they struggle with or that they might be curious about. And if you let that drive the type of content that you're creating, you kind of have their interest already built in. that's a really good place to start. And the other thing to do is just try to differentiate yourself by creating content that stands out from the others. So try to make your content longer or more in depth or have more facts or better pictures, right? Find a way to make yours just a little bit better than the next best thing. And that's going to be your best chance of standing out.
Exactly. So I was reading about your book, and you have given a framework, a system in the book that that tells people how to generate unlimited ideas. And I highly recommend your book, and I am actually I have listened a little bit, but I am going to listen the full book as well. So, and the name of the book is The Content Fuel Framework. So, what is the framework, and how can a business work with it to create content that can resonate with their customers, so customers are actually paying attention to whatever story they're telling or whatever services they're selling? Because being a business owner, you feel like you really want to sell stuff, and most of the time people are creating content for their products or services. But in the end, what is happening is, if I am not solving a problem for my customers, my customer or my audience, they might look at the content, but they're not going to pay attention, or they're not going to be really coming towards buying my products or services, right?
Right.
So what is that framework? Can you tell us a little bit about that framework, or maybe like a step-by-step instructions into it?
Sure. Yeah. So the framework is rather large to learn about, because I don't want anyone to feel intimidated by it since we rushed through. But I'll tell you how it works. So basically, the methodology behind the book says that the reason we find content idea generation difficult is because we don't have a system. We just sit down and we kind of hope, or wait for luck to strike. So what the book proposes is that you create for yourself almost like two checklists, that every single content idea has a focus. So it's about something, right? There's a topic or a message, and then it has a format. So that's the way we bring it to life, like a live video, like we're doing here, or audio, or a written piece, images, etc. So the idea being, your system should be to go through this list of potential focuses, these different topics such as people or data or history, right? And use all of those different potential angles to think about how you might tell the story. And then to go through the list and say, well, which of these formats is the best way for us to tell that story? So in the book, I share 10 different focuses, different approaches you can take, and then 10 different formats, the different ways you can sort of bring those stories into the world. And if you line them up on a grid, you end up with sort of 100 possible intersections, 100 different ways to tell any story. And then there's some bonus stuff at the end about how you can kind of multiply that and turn it into more and more. But really the idea is just that we need a system. And the example I always give is, you've had someone in your house and you say like, oh, what should we have for dinner? And it always turns into an ordeal, right? Because we don't know, are we going out? Are we eating in? Well, I want this kind, I want this kind. And there's no system for deciding, right? But if you have a system, which is that a certain person gets to pick dinner on each night of the week. So like Monday is my day and Tuesday is your day. So it's Tuesday, and that means you pick what we're having for dinner. Suddenly it's a lot less complicated. Or if we have a list, maybe we've done meal prep over the weekend, and so our options are these 3 things that I prepared already yesterday. So by sort of giving yourself a system, by limiting yourself, you actually make yourself much more effective. So that's what the book is all about, giving you a system so that when you sit down and say, I need something for Instagram, or I need something to post in my email for my customers, that you don't have to just hope something comes to you, but rather you can have a system for trying to decide what that might be.
We have Mohammed here, and he is asking a question. Thanks for joining, Mohammed. How do you find content ideas for content versus just more of the same? Like, of course, there is stuff already, right? And most of the time when I'm creating content, I really want to create something that nobody has ever done it. And to have that thought, to have that creativity, how do you get that idea? How do you generate that type of idea that nobody has done it and you do it, and you just cut the noise and cut through the noise and everyone is actually noticing you? How do you do that?
So I don't know that you will like the answer to this one, Mohammed. So I think the answer is that there actually aren't really too many unique content ideas. Most of the things that have to be said have been said. And the way that we can differentiate ourselves is not by being the first person to say something, but by doing it in a different way.
Right.
So you think about, again, like I'll come back to a food. I'm a little hungry. I'm coming back to a food metaphor. When you sit down to make yourself a meal or a snack, your goal isn't to make something that's never been made before. Like I'm going to take pickles and ice cream and, watermelon and make a milkshake. Like that sounds horrible. No one's made that before, but it doesn't make it good just because no one's made it. The best way to maybe make something is I'm going to make a lasagna, or I'm going to cook chicken, and I'm going to use a slight variation on, the way that I prepare it because that's unique to me. That's how I like it. Or I'm going to take out the garlic because that's not my favorite and put in some other spice because that is something I like, put in cumin or something, right? And then you end up with a variation that is unique to you and can become someone's favorite. So the other thing to point out is that for most of us, when we're looking for something out in the world, content or otherwise, we're not looking for the only one in the world, right? When we need a clothing item or we need to find a mechanic for our car, we don't want the only one in the world. We need the one that fits our context. Is it, within our budget? Is it in our immediate area? Does it speak specifically to my needs, right? They're excellent at fixing Hondas versus fixing a Volkswagen, right? So you don't have to create the only thing that's ever been created. What you have to do is really understand your customer, understand your audience, and create the content that's right for them. And I know there's sometimes fear that someone else has done this before, but people don't generally see every piece of content in the world. Again, if they're doing a search or they're one of your customers, they're going to see the content that comes from you, not the content that comes from someone 8 years ago that had a similar topic on their blog, right? So It's really about serving our audience exactly what they need, even if someone else has tried to serve that same thing before. Obviously, if that need is not being served, then there's still opportunity for someone to do it better or different.
Exactly. That's true. Yeah. So these days, like even in last 2 years or 1.5 years after COVID, things have changed so much, and now it's more of like people are not going to places, they are buying online. So experiences have to be, they have changed a lot from what was before, maybe a year before, right?
Yeah.
So how can some business generate idea in given the situation that, okay, now I cannot sell my services or products in person, but I have to do something on my social media channels where people are still looking into, or people are still interested in buying my product or services. So how can a business generate those ideas for their social media channels in 2021?
One of the best kinds of content you can create that is relevant at any point in the customer life cycle. It's relevant any time of year. It's relevant, regardless of how many sales you're doing at that moment, is educational content. So, as long as you can provide something that is teaching your audience something, that will continue to be valuable. So let's say that you run, let's say you're that mechanic that I was talking about before, your local mechanic that runs an auto shop. Teach your customers about how often should they be changing their tires. How do they know when they should change their tires? How do they know how to prep their car for the winter or the summer? Or what happens if I'm experiencing this particular sound? You could teach your audience those things. They're still engaging with you. They're better understanding what you offer in the first place. And hopefully that makes them more likely to trust you down the line. That if you're someone who has given them lots of helpful information, you've helped them understand their vehicle or their business or their family or their health, whatever it is, you've helped them understand that better. They are now better positioned to be your customer, be your client, be your partner down the line, because now you're speaking the same language. So I would say educational content where you're teaching your audience something. It could be teaching them terms, teaching them how to do something, teaching them different, what to look for, questions to ask. There's so many different ways you could teach your audience something. That's a way to continue to provide value, even if you're not able to give your services at the moment.
Yeah, that's a great advice. And these days, if you cannot really educate or you cannot tell your story online, because most people are using they're sitting online, they're browsing, and they have more time than before to use social media channels or to do research if they're trying to maybe buy some product or service. People are, most of the time before becoming a buyer, they have this journey where they are doing their research, and that research is all, most of the time, is happening online. So it's a great idea to educate your audience and tell them how they can, because if you're creating a value to them, if you're gifting them with something, definitely they're gonna give you value. They're gonna give you back as well. Maybe in terms of their attention, or maybe they will buy your product or services. It depends on the situation, right?
Yeah. I always like to pull it back to a real life analogy, because I think sometimes marketing feels like, or, running your business, it all feels like this kind of squishy thing that we can't really visualize. But think of the person in your life who has helped you a lot, someone who has maybe picked you up from the airport in the before times, or, watched your dog for you on the weekend that you had to make a trip, or, helped you with homework in a class that, maybe wasn't your strongest suit. You feel closer to that person. You feel gratitude because they've given you something that was of value to you. Sometimes, at their own expense, or without really even being asked. And that builds that relationship. It makes it more deeper. And so when they're needing a favor down the line, you're much more likely to pitch in and help, or, remember to wish them happy birthday or whatever else it is, because there's that bond that they've given you something of value. So you can do the very same thing for your customers, for your clients, your vendors, your prospects. Give them that value so that when the time comes that you have to make a request or invite them to make a purchase, for example, they already feel a strong relationship with you, a strong loyalty to you, because you've given them so much already.
Definitely. And that value pays off, and pays off for, like, in the long run, it will help you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when creating the content, one thing is, of course, we are creating, you can create a content calendar out of it, and that's where that's the line you can go and strategize your content based on the products or services or the type of business you're in, right? Yeah. But creating content with aligning it with the data from the content that you're getting. Let's say if you have posted maybe 3 posts in last 1 week, and now you want to see how many people have engaged with it, or how many people have actually liked it, or maybe contacted you to buy your products or services that you're selling. So what type of role data plays in telling your story or creating a content strategy for social media?
Yeah, data is absolutely essential to if you want to create consistently better content, if you want to get better and better over time and get closer to your goals, then you absolutely need to look at that data. Again, same thing we do in our business. If you're putting out a product and it's consistently getting bad reviews, you're probably going to want to make some changes to that product, right? So we can think about our presence on social media in the same way. If we're putting out photos on Instagram, for example, and no one's liking them, no one's commenting, well, that's a review in and of itself, right? That's sort of like a bad product review. It's time for us to mix up the recipe or try something new to see if we can get that engagement. So one of the things that's really important when you're looking at your data is to have a clear view of what your goal is, because there's different goals with social media. Sometimes we just want to reach far and wide. We want to get in front of a new audience and just have them know we exist. So that would be you care about awareness. Sometimes we already have some audience and we just want to keep that relationship going. We're trying to engage them. We might be measuring likes and comments in that instance. And of course, we are a business. So sometimes our main goal is we need to create sales or schedule calls or have them download or sign up or whatever that conversion is. So you want to make sure that you understand what purpose your content on social media is serving. Are you trying to get awareness or create engagement or create those conversions? Because that's going to determine which ones you want to optimize for. So, if you're looking for conversion, it doesn't really matter if you get a lot of likes. That's not going to help you get your goal. So you just want to make sure you know what that goal is so that you're looking at the right data.
So I get this question a lot from last 2-3 months. I am getting people are asking this question a lot, that how do we create the content? Like, I don't know. I have created some videos, but how do I create more? Some people are like, one of the ladies, she has some kind of a YouTube channel, and it's about food. So she contacted me and she was like, I don't know what to create. And she was like, I have thought about it a lot, but I can't really come up with an idea because whatever I had, I did already. So how can I create more videos, or how can I generate more content? So are there any tools to find better content ideas for social media in 2021?
Yeah, I don't want to be shameless, but that is actually what the book is about. So the book can definitely help you come up with more ideas. But one little tool that I like to suggest is applying the same content for a different audience. So I would call that like multiplying it by a different demographic. So let's say we did the recipe, your friend's doing recipe videos on their channel. Well, are there recipes for single people that, it only makes a single serving? Or what about the recipe for a whole family? Well, what if you're making it for a party, right? What if I'm really busy and on the go? Is there sort of a short, easier version of it? Well, what is there a version if I don't have a microwave or I don't have a hand mixer? So what you can do is just look and see what members of my audience might not be served by this piece that I already made. And how can I adjust it slightly to appeal to different parts of my audience? So another good example of this, if you are in, the financial space, tax season is coming up. So we're going to start seeing a lot of content around tax deductions you need to know about, or tax changes. We're going to see how to handle if you got a stimulus package, or, all different types of tax content. But everyone's taxes may be different, that whether you have children, or you're a student, or you're a big family, or you're unemployed, or you are employed, those
Exactly.
rules and those things are going to be different. So rather than making here's 10 tax deductions you should know about, you can actually make 10 different articles, one for students and families and single parents and homeowners and all kinds of different groups of people who are going to need to look at different information. So that's often you can take one idea and multiply it into many by saying, how can I make this piece of content serve a new audience?
Awesome. Those are great ideas.
Yeah, I like to play little like games that, when I'm out in the world. So one of my favorites is trying to think of like how many uses there are for a particular item. This is a really common like creativity or improv challenge. Let's say a brick or a straw from a drink. What are all the different things you could do with that? And you just keep thinking and try to come up with as many uses as possible. What you're training is your brain to make connections between different parts that don't normally play together. Straw is not normally in the animal column, but I just thought, well, I could stir up cat food with it. I don't know. You could kind of make totally different random connections because you're really stretching your mind to think in new ways. And that's going to make that connection easier down the line. So that's one that I love to do. And a very similar one this is a little harder during COVID since many of us are still inside or not going out as often. But when I'm walking through the store, sometimes I like to give myself a challenge. This is like the opposite. Before going into a store, I might say, okay, I need to look for anything that could possibly be a planter that I could put a plant in. And it doesn't have to be things that are exactly planters. Like, okay, there's a helmet. I guess I could take a helmet for a bicycle and put a plant in it, or, a bowl in the kitchen, right? So if you can give yourself that little prompt, you're like, okay, that could be a planter, that could be a planter. So it just kind of trains, again, just training your brain to think of connections that wouldn't normally happen.
That's an interesting thought. So have you ever faced any challenges when you're creating content for social media channels, or when you're looking at other businesses who are creating content? Are there any challenges that you feel like, okay, this is something that we need to find a solution for?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges that are often unique to your business or your life situation or the resources that you have. A lot of people are worried that they don't have the right technology, or, I don't have enough equipment, or, I don't have enough skills. I don't know how to edit video or record audio or something. It's really easy for us to feel intimidated by that. So, again, I think that's a mindset thing. Do what you can with what you have is the best way to approach that challenge. The other challenge we see often is it's just it's kind of like what we talked about before, is people just not having the confidence to try it. We feel like it needs to be perfect. I have definitely struggled with that, where I'm like, this just needs something more, or I want it to be a little bit longer. I want it to be a little bit, I don't know, it's missing something. And sometimes we hold back content that, or stories that we have for far too long, because we're waiting for them to be just right. And I always like to say, it's much better to put a 9 out in the world than to wait for a 10 to sit in your, in your drafts for a few months. It's just get that content out there. We learn as we go, and so I think that's kind of like the most freeing thing for me, is it's all an experiment. We're all just trying. Anyone who's giving you advice, including me, their advice is coming from the things that they have done with their channels, for their audience, with their content, right? So it's all unique. So the best we can do is try things and look at our data and see what's working, and what's making us happy, versus maybe something that's more frustrating than it is, rewarding. Yeah, content is sort of our opportunity to continue to communicate with our audience when we can't see them face to face, or they can't come in and visit us. So to be able to provide something of value, to educate them, to entertain them, just to check in and see how they're doing. I mean, all of that goes a long way toward building that relationship. And that's what we're ultimately after, right? We want to build those longer term relationships with our clients.
So what is the best place for people to contact you or find you?
Yeah, so you can find me if you look at the spelling of my name down here. If you look for me on any social network that you enjoy, you will find me there, Melanie Diesel. And you can also head to my website. So the website for my book is contentfuelframework.com. So contentfuelframework.com. If you head there, you can learn all about the book. You'll find my contact information, everything else there. And if you're looking for help creating some of the content that you are doing, and especially if you're in the B2B space, we specialize in B2B brands at Foundation Marketing, definitely reach out and we'll see if there's something we can do to help you get better content and more stories out there in the world.
Any closing thoughts for people who are looking to create content, being if they're just new to this space or if they have some kind of audience already built up?
I mean, I think the only tip I could say as a last minute is like, just do it. Just try it.
So thank you so much, Melanie, for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you here. So I have a quote here from Abraham Lincoln. Somebody actually asked him about chopping down a tree, and he said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend first 4 sharpening the axe. And when I read this quote, I was amazed at how he is explaining about sharpening your skills, sharpening the way you can talk to people, you can tell your story, and you can create the content. That's the meaning behind this quote. So, and you can do your research. You can figure out who your audience is, what are their pain points, and what type of problems you are solving for them. That's where you can find a lot of ideas. And once you have figured out problem that your audience is trying to solve for, and if you can solve that problem for them, definitely you will have a lot of content to post on your social media. If you have any question, leave me a comment below and I will be happy to help you. And if you want me to create any content or if you have any question that you want me to answer in the video, I can happily do that for you. So thank you so much, Melanie.